Michael Moore gave the Democratic Party a much-needed wake-up call over the weekend as he predicted that Donald Trump could win the election if the trend in enthusiasm and how close this polling is continues. So, in case you forget, I'll remind you about this later, but Michael Moore predicted that Trump would win in 2016. One of the few people allowed on television that was warning that Trump could win, despite all the polling showing otherwise. Let me show you here what he put on Facebook over the weekend. So he posted a screenshot of what I believe is a CNN poll. Yes, it is. Showing Biden at 49% over Trump at 48% in battleground states. 49 to 48. Now, if this is shocking to you, that's because the polling has narrowed over the past few months. So for a while there, Biden was enjoying a fairly large lead of around 10 points. And since then, it's narrowed significantly. And I'll get to more of that data here in a minute. But first, let me read Michael Moore's post on Facebook. So he says here, sorry to have to provide the reality check again, but when CNN polled registered voters in August in just the swing states, Biden and Trump were in a virtual tie. In Minnesota, it's 47-47. In Michigan, where Biden had a big lead, Trump has closed the gap to 4 points. Are you ready for a Trump victory? Are you mentally prepared to be outsmarted by Trump again? Do you find comfort in your certainty that there is no way Trump can win? Are you content with the trust you've placed in the DNC to pull this off? The Biden campaign just announced he'll be visiting a number of states, but not Michigan. Sound familiar? I'm warning you almost 10 weeks in advance. The enthusiasm level for the 60 million in Trump's base is off the charts. For Joe, not so much. Don't leave it to the Democrats to get rid of Trump. You have to get rid of Trump. We have to wake up every day for the next 67 days and make sure each of us are going to get 100 people out to vote. Act now. So, a big warning here from Michael Moore, and the only part I really disagree is that don't leave it to the Democrats. I agree, don't leave it to them in terms of how they're acting right now, but it's on the party and the Biden campaign to try and win this election. Right now, they're sitting back, and for a while, it worked. For a while, using Trump as the reason to come out and vote for Biden was working. But now it's getting to the point where they're just not making the case. They have to get out there and both win on the policy issues, discuss healthcare, maybe try and offer something to somebody in terms of universal healthcare, maybe talk more about the policies that Biden does support now, like raising the minimum wage. But he won't even do that because largely, this is the issue that I have when it comes to Biden. If he does support something, how much can you really trust him to actually fight for that? So obviously, look, the alternative here is a lot worse. But if the Biden campaign is not going to try and reach out to those disaffected voters, those people that didn't vote in 2016 because they didn't like either choice, if Biden's not going to try to reach out to those people by maybe looking at some polling and seeing that Medicare for All has 70% support, seeing that a wealth tax has a majority of support, seeing that a number of these policies that Bernie Sanders fought for in the primary has a majority of support from all voters, marijuana legalization being another one. If Biden's not going to try and fight for any of these, then a lot of those voters are going to stay home. Now, you could argue and fight and cry and say, well, they should come out because Trump's dangerous. Yeah, you can make that argument, but you know what? It's not working. So the Biden campaign has to actually do something to try and win. Now, let me show you a little more detail here on some of this data. So YouGov put this out on July 31st, and this is showing the enthusiasm gap between Trump and Biden. And this is something I've talked about in the past as well. The reason why this wasn't as much of a worry is because the polling for Biden was still looking really good. Meaning that even though Trump supporters are really enthusiastic about Trump and Biden supporters are not enthusiastic about Biden, those Biden supporters or Biden voters were still enthusiastic about voting against Donald Trump. But that's a number you can't really rely on. You can't rely on people's hatred of Trump continuing for months and months and months and leading to the election. Biden has to actually have support that is enthusiastic to come out and vote for him in the election. But you see here, Trump supporters are more enthusiastic about their candidate than Biden supporters are about Biden. So this is pretty stark. 40% of Biden supporters are enthusiastic about Biden. 68, almost 70% of Trump supporters are enthusiastic about him. So enthusiasm drives voters out to vote on election day. So Trump leading in the enthusiasm gap in 2016. Obama leading in enthusiasm in 2008 and 2012. Enthusiasm is often a great predictor of what's going to happen. Now, as I've said in the past, this election, being that Trump is such an obvious, horrible man, enthusiasm, I think, means less. But we're seeing now that it still matters because of how close the other polling is, which I guess I'll get to, or as I said, I'll get to in a minute. But massive enthusiasm gap here. Let me show some other polls from this YouGov result. So how enthusiastic are Biden's and Trump's respective supporters about voting in this year's election? So Biden supporters a lot less enthusiastic about voting in the election, 69% to 76% for Trump. Compared to voting in previous elections, are you more or less enthusiastic? Biden supporters, 53% say more enthusiastic, more Trump supporters. So Trump supporters are even more enthusiastic than last time. 55% are more enthusiastic than in 2016 in supporting Donald Trump. The gap here is quite clear. Here's another one. This one's a little closer. Trump and Biden supporters nearly identical in rated importance of voting for president in 2020. So that they both see the importance of voting, but with the enthusiasm gap so wide between the two, a lot of this support for Biden can easily drop off. Now, let me get to a little more details here on this is CNN's poll from August 17th. Biden and Trump matchup tightens as enthusiasm hits a new high. So Biden's lead over Trump among registered voters has significantly narrowed since June. This is according to a CNN poll conducted by SSRS. So as I will show you here, well, first let me get to this. So this is in Michigan. So Michigan, you see here, one of the important swing states, Trump is actually leading, according to this Trafalgar Group poll. So Trump at 46.6%, Biden at 45.2%. But let me give you more of an overview here. So this is a general election, Trump versus Biden. So right now it looks, you may think this is good, right? 6.9. Biden's up by 6.9 on average nationally. Again, this is national. I think polling when it comes to state by state and swing states is clearly more important because you could win the popular vote and still lose the election. But you see here 6.9, which, you know, whatever. Seems all right, except for the fact that it's dropped considerably. So Biden had been leading by, you see 7.7, see the bottom number there, 7.4, 8.3, 9.3. So the race has narrowed significantly from where it once was. And the trend is clearly not looking good here. Going to battleground states here. So again, right now, Biden is only leading by a spread of 2.7 points. You see, you can look at this graph and see how much this is narrowed. So this is battleground states. Let me just read these states here. So including Wisconsin, North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona. So you see here at one point, Biden had been leading by about, 6.2, 5.4, 5.3, 6.3. So Biden had a, still close, but more comfortable lead here in battleground states for a while. And then recently, Biden's lead is only now plus 2.7. Again, showing this race narrowing. Now, to remind you, Michael Moore, this was on October 26, 2016, basically days before the election in 2016. Michael Moore says people will vote for Donald Trump as a giant FU, and he'll win. And of course, that happened. So people need to, look, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm not going to listen to other people covering this stuff, that we've been covering this, for a while now, especially these last few weeks where the race has really tightened. Listen to the guy that was on television predicting that Trump would win in 2016. So the only course of action here, look, I can make the case that I've made before. I think this is an election you have to look at who you rather fight. Would you rather, in terms of being the president, would you rather fight Trump as the president? Who knows where these next 4 years can go? We've already seen that he's the complete lawlessness. Or would you rather fight a typical neoliberal in Joe Biden? I think it makes a lot more sense, and you could organize a lot better under a neoliberal Joe Biden than you can under Donald Trump. Trump throwing peaceful protesters in jail, just grabbing people, occupying cities like Portland, grabbing people off the street into unmarked vans and driving off. With Joe Biden, we can put this crisis, the economic crisis and the pandemic, on a Joe Biden presidency and organize around that, because you know their reaction to this, their response to this pandemic is not going to be enough. We know a Biden administration is not going to offer Medicare for all, not going to have $2,000 a month UBI for people, not going to have any real substantial change in people's lives. You know that, based on the pattern of behavior that we've seen from both Biden and the Democratic Party. So this is the perfect time to drop a giant crisis on the party and show everybody that this party has nothing to offer, and organize that way, while at the same time having people in Congress making the case, people like AOC, Bernie Sanders, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, making the case from within the walls of Washington, and the case being made through the movements that are going to be outside Washington. This is how you build a real movement. But with Trump in charge, there's no potential for that. And look, as I said, I make this case, but I'm not. I'm a little person on YouTube. You have to. The Democratic Party has to be able to make the case to the people. They have to have Joe Biden make that case. They have to have Joe Biden actually offer something, because what he's doing right now clearly is not enough.